Monday, October 14th of 2024. If you're looking for the Plan Commission, we're at the fire station, so you will not find us at the council chambers. And the first item of business.
Yeah, you can probably hear it. I'm trying to run through tonight, so I apologize everybody in advance. That's my fault for double booking this.
Oh, you're multitasking. All right. So we do have a call to order. We do have a quorum, and we are certified in compliance with open meeting laws. So the first item of business would be approval of the minutes from the September 9th meeting. I would entertain a motion to do so.
Jordan motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Alderman Caravello. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 And any opposed? That motion carries. Next would be the city council representative report for Christian Caravello.
And it looks like at the September 10th council meeting, R 145 of 2024 was approved, and that is all that I have.
All right. Next item is a request by STI Holdings Incorporated for phase 2 preliminary plat, major subdivision and proposal zoning change. And you guys can come up here if you want. That way they can pick you up.
For the minutes, it'd probably be good.
Sure. Yeah, and then if anybody wants to speak, we would have you come up here because the speaker is in this device here. We'll let you guys go ahead and give your presentation and
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Got a little bit of time, but still working through this process. Obviously, we came with a CSM originally just to start the headquarters site and the roads that are adjacent to that, with the intent of coming back here for a preliminary plat and then final plat to do the rest of what was shown in the concept, year and a half ago when we even talked about the comp plan amendment. So I just wanted to hit on a few items that were just noted in the recommendations from staff. I think that was primarily what I wanted to cover.
Did you want me to go through the planner's report and then?
Sure.
Then
Is that okay?
Yeah, let's do it that way. So,
Yep.
no, like, well, you know what I mean?
Yep. No, that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go through the planner's report. I'm going to paraphrase some of it. I always include our ordinance language, but I'm not gonna read it because it's boring. And I know you guys, I mean, that way you guys can find it, but like, unless you want me to, I can't. So essentially this is the 160 acres for Stoughton trailer development. The property was, this essentially the headquarters was established in August of 2023 is when they started looking at it. We are not looking at that portion of the site. It's everything else around it. So that part has been finalized in the CSM, and it's everything around it that we're looking at doing the subdivision plat and the zoning. So this is the preliminary subdivision plat that we're looking at right now, phase 2. And then they're looking at changing the zoning. During that process of the CSM, and I'm kind of going off the cuff here, but during the process of the CSM, you guys already updated the comp plan so that that meets those minimum requirements of the comp plan. So like for the future land use maps and so on, which what I do is I try to keep all of those. So like I did include those in my planner's report, but they're not in the main body. It's just for your information. So, okay. So the applicant is requesting to continue the development with the proposed preliminary plat and zoning. This is a review of the preliminary plat per Chapter 66 of the City of Stoughton Land Division Ordinance. The area includes the proposed Outlot 1, Outlot 2, Outlot 3 of the 2023. I think that's, 2023 CSM. I think it was finalized in 2024 though, wasn't it? That's when you
Recorded,
started. Yeah, recorded. When the current zoning and CSM were approved in 2023, the city's comp plan, comprehensive plan, and official zoning map were amended to accommodate the anticipated subdivision plat and zoning changes. So I'm gonna go over my planner's recommendations and then, we'll turn it over to the applicants and then we can open it up for questions from the audience and online. So normally it's the mayor that's running the stuff. So if I fall behind, I apologize on this. So staff recommends approval of the zoning and preliminary plat subject to the following. So the zoning shall be contiguous with the final plat approval and filing of the register of deeds. Failure to record the final plat within 1 year of the approved for the city council will result in the void of the zoning. So what this is doing is in case they don't get it filed in time, we want to make sure we're saying, hey, it converts back to this original zoning. So that's what's going on here. Zoning would convert back to the 2023 rule holding and institutional zoning. Number 2 is the developer needs to provide phasing for the proposed project. Additionally, 90% of the stormwater utilities construction plan should be finished, final approval of the plat when you file it. So per preliminary plat, there are 3 proposed roads: Greenbrier Road A, and Road B. So what I did when I was looking at this is I looked at what the size of those roads were, and I matched those up to what they were called in our ordinance. And this is drawing out all those requirements of that roadway, so you guys are aware. So for example, on our roadway for like A and B are designed as collector roads, and they're going to require minimum 80 feet, which is what you guys designated in those spaces, with 44 feet curb to curb. And then per ordinance, sidewalks are required on both sides of the road. So that's requiring those out. One of my concerns was with this road B, with collector road. As you guys can see here, I'll zoom down to that spot. This is where the mayor's got my back on this stuff. But these are being requested, and I apologize if they're slightly off, but these are being requested as duplex lots. This would essentially be like 18 curb cuts in this area. I'm looking at restricting that, or just figuring out a design, so with a frontage road or something along those lines. So this is what it's addressing. The number of access on a collector road should be reduced. So number 4, A and B must be named before the final plat. Essentially, this will help with design. I guess it's easier to track street names, and then it shows where the process is for street names in this. Yeah. Street names should not exist in the area for 911 purposes. It's suggested that the road be named early on in the process. Staff recommends extending the use of the name Country Club Road for the naming of Road A, just due to the adjacency. So we have no action should be placed in the subdivision at intersections in accordance with function classification of road and ordinance. I quote one of the ordinances, and then I have a diagram that was pulled directly from our ordinance showing an example here. This should also include the vision triangles in those areas with a no build. And then it shows that. I think they're called visibility standards in ours. Below our example of no access should be added to the subdivision plat. Oh, I know what I did. I did not convert this over to a PDF. It's still in Word, and then it's wanting to see it as Word doc. So that's why it's showing up slightly off. So these are examples of areas that need to have no access. I know one of the questions you had was this one on the right. This area, the access should be off of B. So, or yeah, I think it's B. A or B, the one that's swooping up. So we can circle back to it. Okay.
My recommendations were going to be similar to what Rachel just said.
Did you hear that?
You might have been.
Oh, he's in another meeting. Hey, Brett.
Yep.
Can you mute yourself, or are you talking to us? Okay. Okay. Intersection corners should be rounded off or beveled. It's all right. There are also intersection improvements that will need to be taken into consideration for access onto the County Road B. County Road B is under the jurisdiction of Dane County and may also need approval from the DOT due to proximity to US 51. right-of-way acquisition should be approved before final plat. So that way you can have the areas mapped out. So like taking off. Currently, there's a proposed cul-de-sac on Oak Ridge Way. The area is very close to the maximum length of cul-de-sac for ordinance. It's highly recommended that this be reconfigured with the consideration of street safety impact. Here's the example. This came out of a TAC meeting, so just more of an FYI. And then rounding out, I know also too, additionally, there are some current concerns with lot 13 multifamily zoning. The city is asking that the lot be explored for other uses or configuration. Number 9, currently there are no easements located on the proposed subdivision plat. I think they just need to either be referenced or shown. It goes into the information on where those need to be. I'm not going to read them all off for you. It's just straight from ordinance, but that's so you guys have the information. And then it's showing some of the examples on here where they're missing. For resolution approved on September 11th, 2023. This is the 50-foot wide easement and trail potential. I think if you could reference it, it doesn't necessarily need to be found, but just so it's trackable for years to come. So, and then again, with a drainage easement, some additional information. I like having that all written down so we can track it in the long run. So, the lots proposed should meet requirements of the proposed zoning districts. This is pretty standard language. The Appendix 1 site assessment checklist, which has been attached to the bottom of the planner's report, needs to be met. So that's on there. Additionally, some of the lots with steep slopes that are greater than 18%. A lot of these were the single family lots that should be reviewed to ensure that they have just like sufficient building space. So that if we get something in there and we create the lot, it needs to be buildable. So that's what we're looking for on those. The future trails need to be documented on the plat. This can be done as an outlot or an easement. If it's done by easement, there needs to be a separate document approved by the city and filed with Register of Deeds. This can be documented in developer's agreement. Below is an example of that future trail area that we've been talking about. It would be nice if we had that and just, if it's not shown on the plat, to reference so that way, again, we can find. This is the new change that we'll actually be bringing the ordinance, but it's coming out of the U.S. Postal Service is requiring the cluster mailbox units, which I'm sure, Steve, you're aware of, for all new commercial and residential development. These areas, they should be designed in and private property outlet, like lot. It shouldn't be on city property, and it should be designed in the plat. So I'm just going to explain this. I'm not going to read all of it. So essentially, you can see in the CSM that was essentially filed this last year, we have outlot 1, and it's expanding greatly in this next proposal, which is fine. But I know that there's been some talk about having pavilions or some kind of area for the park area. If there's going to be buildings or whatnot constructed, we would like to have that renamed from an outlot to a lot. It doesn't change the filing or anything like that. It's just more of a legal thing because you're really not supposed to be building essentially buildings on outlots. So I think it'll just clean it up in the long run. And then I think also having can't remember if it's on here or not, but I think that you guys had a note in the original one that said something about designated to the city for park purposes or something along the lines of that. So number 14 and 15 are the general stuff that we always get approved by engineering, building inspector, fire inspector, or any other departments. And then any other conditions identified by city staff or the plan commission. I did attach the Appendix 1 site assessment checklist. I'm not going to go through that unless you guys request it to. But I wanted that to be on there. I did make notes on some of it. So, okay, with that, I can turn it over to you guys, or do you want to take questions from, what do you want? I think letting speak next.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you for going through that. Yeah, all Tibbetts just noted that we did put it on TIA to the county, so are in reviewing, and I shared with the city as well. And so we do already have preliminary considerations of the intersections for both A and Greenbrier, how it connects to County B. So we're waiting for feedback from the county, but we have a good assessment of what that would be. And we submitted engineering plans for what we're calling phase 2A, which is the extension of Greenbrier up to County B and extending Freeman to the east and connecting that. So basically, we're not looking to build local road B, which is the one that wraps the park, and the little segment that connects that one is Country Club. So that's what would be in a future phase 2B. So in that submittal, we are looking at residential lots where we can to have basement exposure. And obviously there's fill needs of the site too. So we did make considerations that halfway through where a building will be placed for the single family where we could, there would allow for exposure of the basement. But we'll look further into that, specifically that 18%. The items more in focus I wanted to touch on was item 3, which was about what the functional classification are for these roads. I don't think we have the comp plan here right now visible. I had a printout of it, but it would show you that, just for reference, 51 and County N are both shown as arterials, and County B, Friedman, Robbie Road, those are shown as collectors. So giving you a reference point that, in my opinion, from reading the comp plan and understanding classifications outside of the right of way that we dedicated for, that Greenbrier is more of the collector. It's taking all the local streets to Greenbrier and then getting it to the arterials of 51. And ultimately, I think County B should be an arterial, but it's shown as collector right now in the comp plan. But then more so local A and B, which is the one that wraps the park and connects the country club. To me, that is local roads. They're taking individual driveways to the collector or the arterial. Why am I bringing this up? There was that clause in there that says we want to reduce access points along collectors. So I'm just wanting to take a step back and say, is that road really? Yes, we're giving 80 right away, which was requested. You could build that same road, but functionally how it will be served with residents on it, it functions more of a local road, getting it to Greenbrier, the collector road, to the arterials of 51 in County B. So that's one thing I just wanted to consider potentially when you add conditions to this plan.
So I have a comment on that. So based on that circular road, we believe that based on conversations we've had about access, not only to the residential, but potentially the commercial and a community park. I think that's why, at least in my mind, I was thinking that was more of a collector road.
I think too, because it's classified as a collector road. I looked at the width of it, and that's why I picked what I did. I was concerned because you guys are putting duplexes in here, and it's potentially 18 curb cuts in this span. And so while I don't necessarily have a problem with duplexes in this area, I think reducing in that short amount of time, 18 curb cuts is why I suggested that. So that's why I was like, I don't know if you do 2 and pull off a small frontage road or something along the lines of that, but that's the request, and that's why I'm requesting it. So
I definitely see a design where they share within the same lot the one access point. I think that's a fair consideration of down to 9.
yeah,
The added frontage road changes the aspects of that, and it further reduces what can be buildable unless we completely change the road network through there and cut into the park. Adding a frontage road, I don't know if aesthetically is what you'd even want. If you're seeing that as, if we can agree that 9 curb cuts, that I think is more of a format that is typically seen in what could potentially even twin homes, right? Because that could be even, then that would have to share access point for 2 individual owners of that building.
Do any of the commissioners have any thoughts about that?
I think B is going to be, this road B, it's probably going to be a busier one. I see it being a shortcut type road, especially from the subdivisions that are just to the east there, cutting through and Ketterman. And I know some people that live in this subdivision right there, it's a nice feeder to say, I'm going to go to Culver's for the night. I think that's a good idea though, if we cut the curb costs, because that's, I guess, what I would be most concerned about. A lot of people entering the road from the multiple spots is a concern.
Anybody else?
Yeah, in regards to road width, however you define it, from a traffic engineering standpoint, the wider the road gets, the more likely people are to speed. That's just human nature. So that may be a consideration. If you make the road narrower, people just naturally tend to slow down more.
We're not opposed to the narrow road.
I was just gonna
Be
say,
clear on that one.
I think that's great.
And I think there's curves in here that also helps deter, and also depending on if you're having stop signs, at each of those intersections, it becomes less, intriguing than just staying on Greenbrier, which actually, the 51 connects to a roundabout, which is an easier way to get in and out. So I guess I'm not sure about the cut through aspect. I see ones coming from the east are gonna just use Greenbrier to go east or west. But so just consideration of that, I understand the
Yeah, that's-
18,
That's concerning, like,
but,
especially like when you're looking at, maybe on 11, I know that potentially could get divvied up, but probably maybe 5 curb cuts there, maybe 4 curb cuts for the multifamily, and then 9. So it's a lot.
sure.
Do you see a scenario where the 2 lots on the end, they can't read the numbers on there, or you might be able to enter it?
1 and 10.
Yeah, you could enter it from 1 or 10 instead of from the, what is that? Is that Greenbrier? Is that what that certain interior road is called?
I think it's just County Road B right here. Or, sorry, I mean,
This one here.
yeah, right here. It's right here. It's just Road B for right now.
Road B.
Yeah.
So you see a way to enter them maybe from one of the other lots instead of from the road, or at least somebody might consider.
I guess it depends on what's gonna go on that lot, because based on the size that it is right now and the type of potential business, they're also gonna need parking. So right now, I would say no, just due to the size of those lots, because they're right by that roadway. I don't know an option that would make it, viable to keep that lot
Yeah, because
marketable.
the one is an outlot, so I don't know.
On the
That would not be probably allowed, is my guess. That would be dedicated to the city for stormwater management.
Which we could, I mean, Rick, what's our policy with that? I don't know. The thing is I'm assuming you're selling these, right? So it's
Correct.
gonna be a
Mhm.
developer that comes in.
Right.
Do you guys have a potential developer where you know the layouts or anything like that?
Those
Or,
are tough spots because those are the ones that require the lift station.
okay,
So that is probably the farthest from the lift station, the most difficult to market right now.
Yeah.
Just due to, we can't really give a timing.
And if they go twin homes, which I think might be more of interest to the landowners to the north, which is meaning it's owner occupied,
which
that makes it a lot harder.
we can't.
No, you can't do that, but I'm just saying if that were the scenario that went forward, trying to have shared access to lots that are not even within that grouping, it just gets more complicated. Could we look at it if it comes time? Sure. I would say this is what we presented for the last 2 years as this same use on
Yeah.
the same road. I just, putting a frontage road in the front or even behind is not an ideal scenario. I can agree with getting it down to 9 through there. And again, we're getting beyond,
For the record, it's not the use that we're talking about.
Sure.
It's the curb cuts that I am concerned
Sure.
with, especially this has always kind of looked off to me, and I know I haven't been here for the full 2 years, but, that's my biggest concern, quite frankly, is all of the curb cuts in this space. So,
Yeah, and maybe, we can look for some examples of areas where we have a similar curb cut situation and see how that is working out. I don't know if we have any in Stoughton or not, but maybe we could take a peek.
I can look.
Or if you guys have some examples in other developments that you're working on, we can see how that's working.
So what's your question to me, Chris?
I don't know, can we use the outlot as an access point? I would just say that there needs to be some kind of access easement on it, if depending, but like the other part of this too is we're,
I mean, if it's gonna disrupt the function of the stormwater management.
No, but yeah, yeah, I see what you're saying, but also like, this is really hard to predict because we don't know how they're gonna lay it out. So in other words, we could, in theory, put one access point between every other one and they could be faced in or something along those lines, depending on how they sit. So we can reduce the access points like 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, depending. I have no idea.
Yeah, we'll take a look and,
Yeah,
and if you have something that you've seen, otherwise we'll do some.
Yeah, the only reason I brought that up is because I know oftentimes when we talk to developers, when they do twin homes, they like to have driveways facing on two different sides, not all in front of it. On a corner lot, they like to take advantage of the side. Obviously you don't have a road there right now, but you know, it's the same thing with on 10. If there's a way to do that over there, that's gonna be, more than likely a commercial. You know, depending on what goes in there might be an opportunity there too. But I don't know when that's gonna be built out either, because those working off the lift stations as well.
It's just easier to have a shared driveway agreement with two owners of the same property than to start having shared agreements between commercial and residential
Sure.
as well. I mean, is it possible? Sure, but it
Yeah.
becomes a little more messy.
But that's the feedback we've gotten from builders in the past, is if they have a corner lot, they prefer to come at it from two different angles and not both in the front, basically, or the back for that matter, but, so I guess we can maybe have more conversation about that later. Anybody else have anything on that aspect before we move on?
Can I just say something to leave? I have a.
Well, we have to figure out how to get the public input in.
so
here.
let's do this. And I'm partly gonna say this just because we're working off the owl and not Spencer running it.
Yeah.
Let's get through all of their questions and then I want you to come up and sit at the table so we can
I
hear you.
have a business meeting at the American Legion.
Okay, well, why don't you come on up then if you have some questions, but you have to sit up here because we have to record you. So that, I'm sorry. But we're dealing with what we can.
Yeah, just wherever there's a seat, there's a couple over there,
Yeah.
like yourself.
Just watch out for all of the,
I'm sorry.
no, you're fine.
I've been just listening to this. I'm one of the neighbors. I live on 1600 Pelham Street, so. And I've talked to Chris about our concern about stormwater management there because there's a hill going down there and it's in the past that woods has always absorbed most of the water that drained down there. But in listening to the discussion here and Greenbrier Road and traffic, I was a former business manager for the school district when we built Sand Hill. And there was always discussion at the time with the architect about having school buses go in off of where Greenbrier would be now to the back side if they have to put an addition on that school one. Just want to make sure that you involve the school district so a lot of people aren't around anymore as to what that discussions were. That's the only reason
Yeah,
I wanted to say something.
We have been having conversations with the school district, but it's been more related to the trail.
Yeah.
And based on a meeting we had earlier today, we need to follow up, so we should certainly see if they have any concerns. You know, this past referendum, last year they passed, there was really no conversation about adding on, at least not to the back.
Right.
So I don't know what their future plans are, but we should certainly ask them about
I
that.
just remember the architects at the time were discussing the future additions that might be needed on that school as
Sure.
Stoughton expands. And probably the better way to get people in and out of that school was to go have the school buses come in on the lower end of the building that way. So,
All right, thanks, Jim.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Watch your feet, Jim. I don't want you
I
to
see it.
fall.
thank you very much.
Yeah,
I'm
have a
sorry
good
to
night.
bother.
No, thank you. Okay.
You too. Okay, so that was the first thing, so we're gonna follow up on that. What was the next item?
Well, they were going
Yeah.
through their stuff.
Next item was 5. You touched on it, Chris, about Right now, the restriction is look like about halfway through what is Nygaard's like center line
Mhm.
to what would serve potentially lot 11. Potentially that lot there could end up having two users on the southern end. You kind of see that, weird finger that comes north
Yeah.
of there. That's where there will be a trail that connects from the underpass of 51 and then ultimately through the park. So everything south of there could potentially have two users. And I guess I was assumed in conversations that at Nygaard, because you want to have it at intersections where an access point would be, and then if there's another user, there might be an access point off local B, but closest to where that trail crossing is, so not right at the corner.
Okay, so what you're asking for on that one is most likely, so the access point would be directly across from Nygaard. So
Correct.
that would be the only, so what I'll do is I'll amend that to show, and these were just examples
Sure.
of the ones that were sent.
Yep.
What I would do is show just that access point and then no access and no access, so they can see where they can get their
Sure.
driveways in.
Okay.
That's really what we're looking for.
That's fine.
Yeah,
I knew it was a small ask. I just thought it would clear that
yeah,
up.
no, that makes sense.
Still two access on that. One off,
One
one on
off
Nygaard.
Green
and one
Bar and one
yeah.
could be off of local B.
Yeah,
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 okay.
it has to do with like the proximity to the intersections normally that we're looking at, but lining it up with that across the street makes complete sense.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay.
You see
Any,
what they're talking about right here,
Yeah.
safety right here.
any commissioners have any thoughts about that? Are you following the map? It's on the map that's right above where it says 6.
So it's actually like this area right here. On the. But yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I think that's good.
So the proposal is what we're looking at, not, you're not proposing a
So what'll
deviation
happen?
from what we're looking at.
So what'll happen is we'll say, like, so I like to show if there's no access, because that way people know where they can put driveways. And essentially what they're asking for is when Mark looked at this initially, Mark is from Strand, he was like, hey, there's a couple of spots with no access, which I agree with, and I think I had already written it up, and I'll show you guys right here. Give me a second to get down there. Sorry. I'll get there. I'll get there eventually. Okay, right here.
You said it was over here, right?
Right there, that's it. So what they're asking is that, because essentially that's like kind of lining up oddly with some different street intersections, but if they get a driveway access, they're wanting it to line up directly across from Nygaard, which is exactly how you'd want that curb cut area to be. And I think that that's a reasonable request.
So currently the red line goes, halfway through that intersection to a point. So that, just noting that it was shorter, and if you just follow Nygaard straight over the western side of that, that's where we're saying like, give that access point, be right at the intersection.
Yep, that makes sense. Does anybody have any questions over that?
So how does that impact the trail and underpass?
Does not. I was
it
getting
should. It
reference.
does.
Yeah, I was just getting
It does.
reference.
Shouldn't.
Yep.
Yeah, it was just getting two access points into that lot, one on one road and one on the other, if there are two different users, but that trail will continue as it's.
So yeah, just no access on either side, showing where the access point can be granted. That's what I would do. So.
Okay. And then item 8 on the cul-de-sac of Oak Ridge. So point I just wanted to make here is, we've been discussing Oak Ridge since the comp plan was amended, which is now a year and a half, 2 years ago. And notably that was not a requirement, as part of the comp plan amendment. We submitted phase 1 engineering, and we did the CSM, and Noel mentioned to need a stubbed in road for that potential connection. We've had other discussions where that hasn't come up. And so we're already at the point where phase 1 utilities have been paid for and constructed, not installed, but constructed. So that would definitely add costs to actually put that road in now. I would say during the comp plan, we had neighborhood meetings, and the people that live on that street clearly stated, and we have that in summary, that they did not want to see that road through. Safety, understand, we're looking at what you see in blue is the lift station. So there would be a multi-use path that connects Oak Ridge to Greenbrier, and that path would also be serving that lift station. And that was something we talked with staff with. The idea this whole time was not wanting the lift station to be right at the access point to the headquarters. So we've been working through how we fit this in, but yet still put it in the right space that we're not having a lot of extra force main. And so we could really screen up Greenbrier and the residential as we're shown here, if only accessing it through this multi-use path. Also with lot 13, which is the MR residential, I did share just before this meeting that we did look at, and this became a better lot configuration to allow for a multifamily building to be the entire Greenbrier frontage outside of a driveway that could come from the west down to parking or underground. So you can get more frontage of a building that's 65 to 68 feet wide, which is enough to do a double loaded residential building. So we did look at that little stubbed area that you're seeing there just west of the blue would allow for a building to front most of Greenbrier. So that lot, in our opinion, was improved from what was originally submitted as a concept back in the day. If the road were to go through, then we have to shift the lift station further east, impact these residential lots more. And it just, again, going back from what we've talked about for the last 2 years, I feel that we can provide the safety needed through the multi-use path. That is likely the concern is emergency vehicles.
Yeah.
And that's definitely done. I don't know if it's on in Stoughton, but that's definitely been done in a lot of communities to allow that.
So just to be clear, this is the, preliminary plat. So this is like the first time this group, it might have been discussed.
Sure.
And the comp plans are normally suggestions, right? Like that's like, hey, these are the guidelines. So with that said, whenever we get preliminary plats in, we're doing a technical advisory committee, and this is what came out of that.
Sure.
So, will it happen? I don't know, but it was one of the suggestions. The one that I'm kind of concerned about was, the multifamily residential. I just don't know how that space will work. Adjacent to an established neighborhood, and it feels very disconnected. And that's, so like, as far as the connection, that was something that came out of the TAC committee meeting, but I am the one that's concerned about the multifamily residential in this space. It feels very, like 1.6 acres is small. I don't know what you can possibly, like, how it all will work out. I wish we had, wish we were farther along in our zoning code update in just in general, so that maybe we could look at different avenues for the space, but that's the, that was my concern with that multifamily zoning. And I know at one point in time, this area had shifted. It feels like this area shifted a lot. And I'm guessing from what you're telling me right now is the reason this area shifted a lot has to do a lot with the lift station. So, I mean, while I can understand that and appreciate it, that was my concern. And out of this TAC meeting was the connection. So.
Yeah, I think the lift station is moved from 2 years ago. And out of the TAC meeting, part of it is us being able to not only emergency management, but being able to maintain it from a public works perspective. Snow removal, snow storage becomes a real issue on these cul-de-sacs. And, punching the road through, which is consistent with the other roads that are leading that direction, I think made sense, at least to that group on that day. And, that's why the recommendation is in there from staff, basically.
Yeah. And for the record, after the TAC meeting, it was suggested to send that out to you guys immediately and not with my planner's report. So that's why you guys got it ahead of time versus planner's report, just the plan. So, does anybody here at the Plan Commission have anything that they want to say on it, or don't everybody talk at once?
So basically we have two issues. We have the zoning on the multi-residential, and then we have the road and the cul-de-sac.
So
part of it with the multi-family residential is, there is established neighborhood. It's not that far from Edelson's Woods. I don't know what would be built there, but I think that there would be some pushbacks from the neighbors. Because we've really worked hard, especially with the 51 West development, to provide a buffer zone for the neighbors that are in there. They're in the township. They're not even, you know, they're not in the city. So we're trying to respect what they have there. And I think that's part of the recommendation. And I thought you guys did a really nice job from our initial meeting a couple of years ago, where we had even more residential there, and they moved them back behind the church and the school as we had recommended at that point. It feels like this area here could be, you know, more single family homes or maybe some twin homes or something like that. But, you know, multifamily, I think it's gonna.
It's an odd space. I feel
It
for
seems
you on
pretty
one end,
random.
but, you know. The other suggestion, you know, like if, and I kind of looking at you, Rick, because I like to put you on the spot. From a safety standpoint, I'm assuming that they'll build a path through there. Most paths, when you build them, you want them to be able to support, you know, emergency services. Like if that's the direction they want to go with that, I don't have a problem, but I think we just need to spell it out for the developer.
And I will just have you, just in terms of reference, when we look at other neighborhoods, especially too with the twin homes along the back, we'll look at some options. This is in my neighborhood, how this is done, and there aren't any safety concerns, and there is access to the lift station, and that's pretty much what the concern is. And and it's wide enough, it hooks up not only with the lift station, but a trail system. So there's no road anywhere. It's pretty much getting straight in and then crossing a trail and getting back to the lift station, and has been very successful. And I think there's a lot of areas that are doing that too. So this wouldn't be an unusual layout from various neighborhoods that serve a significant amount of residential.
Yeah, I mean, it feels to me that if all lot 4 and 13 were flip-flopped, it would have probably been a little bit more cohesive.
I know that there's a huge kettle, right, where that outlet.
There's the wetland, and that's where the water trickles out.
Yeah. That was my question.
Right.
Yeah.
But, you know,
I mean, I like that you're thinking
I mean,
outside the
I would
box,
agree.
and I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
but yeah, I mean, so it does create that random lot. So the question comes down to, well, okay, we have this random lot, how could it best be used? And we're saying that we don't know if multifamily is the answer.
Can I color that, and I'll let you respond on the trail
Yeah.
part, is, I would say through the entire process, we've always shown that as multifamily, with the thinking that the building would front on Greenbrier, parking behind it, it's part of Greenbrier. This other part is the ending of a residential section. Just south of 13 is actually an open lot. That is where the current lift station that we'll be shutting off and adding to ours is. So there's no development directly south of there. And yes, Mary, you're correct that this was all multifamily through here, but through that process of the comp plan in the neighborhood, we flipped all the rest of the multifamily to the east side. But this site was always shown as that potential of, you know, by your current change to MR would allow by right up to 10 units per acre. So we're talking 16 or 17 units. That's really 8 on 2 floors. I mean, if it goes like, you know, permitted by right, that's not a very big building. And again, that would be fronting on the Greenbrier and not even close to the neighborhood to the south. So that was the thinking on that.
And it was because it was by a wetland. So if there's parking in the back or anything like that, you're not disrupting or disturbing any of the neighbors, because it is not a developable lot right there for anything directly to the west.
So the lot 5, or like the lift station, is that being dedicated to the city?
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, as long as that, I would maybe defer to what the fire and EMS people say. But if you do have like like if people could access that, or like emergency services.
Well, so
could
yeah,
access
so
it.
like when you're talking about how like most roads, most paths, when you build them, they have to support an emergency vehicle. So like the multi-pass, that's how they're built. Like, and we've had to take, I mean, I know in other communities, I've had to take emergency vehicles down them, like, right? So if that was always the plan, is to pull a multi-path through this area as the access point, which for the record, like, I don't have a problem necessarily with cul-de-sacs personally. And I think that it helps not having through streets, but at the same time, I think that like the minimum is 500 feet and this is at 492 or something like that. It is real wicked close. So I also understand their concern as well.
Any thoughts from the commissioners on either one of these two items? Otherwise, we can move on, and if you think it's something, we'll come back.
And just, can you just explain from a, just so that I understand from a security standpoint or a safety, the need, because you would never come down that road if you were gonna go somewhere else, this would never get to a residential or a.
What,
safety
when are you
endpoint.
talking about for emergency vehicles, like
Yeah, what is an example of what you would need to get down there for an emergency vehicle?
Well, so if there's fire, EMS, those are the things that normally, like, you want more than one access point. So like, if there's a car fire, that means nobody on one end of this can leave, right? Because now they're trapped in this area. There's not a second exit point. That's the kind of stuff that you look at. So that's why, like, you know, you look at that cul-de-sac just directly next to it, and that's short enough. There's, you know, there's not going to be, but when you, the longer you get and the more, it can be more problematic. And I can tell you, as just somebody that's worked in this field, those numbers tend to be made because something bad happened, right? Like, so,
I'm just trying to understand though, because the other, if you look at where the residential areas are, the residences are on a shorter area, just like the one to the east, in terms of if there was an emergency, you wouldn't need to go through that path for an emergency because it'd be a lift station. So wouldn't you have that cul-de-sac, which would be similar to the one to the east? You're really only going into that cul-de-sac and out, really getting through that is no different than either cul-de-sac.
well, that cul-de-sac reaches up to a road that then adds about 400, 500 more feet to it. So you're only seeing the very bulk of that overall road. And so it's the road length that we're looking at, not necessarily the cul-de-sac portion of it. And again, this isn't my wheelhouse, right? But like, I know that for snow removal, it becomes a problem. Bus sustain absolutely hate these. I live at the end of a cul-de-sac and it's longer than 500 feet. We have to walk all the way down to the end. They will not drive down and get you. Like, and which is fine for my 13-year-old, but when he was 6, that's not as easy to do. So there's like all these circulation things that they're looking at and why they don't necessarily want these really long cul-de-sacs. It's safety, it's snow removal, it's busing systems, like all of this stuff. One of Steve's suggestions was, okay, from the safety aspect, we put a trail in for this area, which you'd probably want anyway to, you know, come out, pop out, which I don't have a problem with. But again, that's, you know, we're seeing one little spot of a bowl that's actually like connected to a really long road. So what you have there looks very different than the one to the east that you can see on your plat. The one to the east isn't going to be a problem. Like, you're not going to get a bus down there, but they only have to walk, you know, 2 lots. Like, so that's just, those are the things that they're looking at and why they limit how long a road can be without connection in that. So.
Oh, the other is, I think that comment is good, and I think the trail provides you that same distance of that short cul-de-sac to get to Greenbrier.
Yeah.
For a circle.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
All right. I'm not hearing anything from commissioners, so I guess we'll move on and maybe come back or.
And keep in mind, this is the preliminary plat too. So like, you know, come back with additional information or, you know, whatnot. This is preliminary. Okay, this is why we do this. Stuff can change, right?
Yeah, so the question I would have on that is, you know, you mentioned that you already have materials. So when would that be installed? Would that be installed before or after you receive the final plat?
They're gonna be starting that soon.
Because that roadway's been approved. So it'd be a
It's all been,
And
it's all finally approved, yeah.
Built,
That's why it's been ordered.
you'd have to modify or rebuild it if you're gonna change how it's all connecting to the system at this point.
All right, let's move on to the next one. What else do we have?
Did you have anything else you wanted to address?
No, so I'm understanding what the process is. Is this the public hearing right now?
Yes.
Okay.
The other thing that wasn't on my list, but if you could do it in your last, this is a really easy one.
Okay.
In the last CSM, you had the first page show the overall CSM, and this one's all disconjointed. Could you put
Sure.
that one? I tried to section it together and it looks real bad, so I
Sure.
didn't show it.
If you prefer to broken like it is, I think we asked that question. Typically, we could just do it as one, but
I would do it, like, I'm fine with you guys. I would like the cover page almost showing the whole
Okay.
thing, and
Okay.
then with the sectioned out, it's fine so that it's easier for us to physically read, otherwise it's gonna be like.
Sure.
But, yeah, I was, yeah. Cause I know that's how you did the last one. You had like a key at the front, and then it was like, and it showed you which page. If you
Sure.
could do that, I would really appreciate it.
no problem.
So you had nothing else?
No, Sweet.
There's other,
Fall back.
Yeah.
probably could stay here. There's other people here.
Yeah, so would you guys like to come up and ask any questions? You have to do it at the desk. You can't do it from your seat. No?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure, come on up.
Yeah.
I'm here, pretty much representing Lakeview Church.
Oh, okay.
And so we see that there's what's listed as the multifamily, which is to the west of our property, current property. So can you give us some kind of a approximate time frame when you think that might be developed in that area?
Like those guys.
Currently, we are obviously entertaining interested developers who are interested in that project. And so, our goal would be to get someone on board next year that would build the following year to 2 years from there. So I would say, because the development is moving from the east out to Highway B, that is, higher focus in terms of selling those lots. So I would say that is the focus now, to do the residential and get the multifamily going within the next couple of years.
Okay. The only concern we may have, for consideration is that there be some kind of a protective barrier in the backyards of those lots so that they can't infiltrate into the church property, a buffer or
What was
something.
your name?
My name is Dave Sailing.
So Dave, I can answer that question.
Okay,
So, right now, this is just the preliminary with zoning.
okay,
When they go to develop it, that's gonna be one of the requirements for the,
okay,
for those multifamily residential. Most likely it'll be a developer in here, and if it's over a certain count, it's gotta go through a conditional use permit, which you guys will be noticed about as well.
Okay.
So, does that work for you?
fair enough.
Cool.
And you have that really big slope too.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
helpful. I just mean that's a positive
Yeah.
for you.
Well, we also got a notification from the rec department with the proposed bike trail. There's an easement through that property, so we're gonna be meeting with them pretty soon.
Talk to this guy, he probably knows.
Yeah, so we talked a little bit earlier today about it. We just we wanna have the trail that goes through the development. So when it goes to the south, it goes all the way through Virgin Lake Park. And then coming out somewhere between your church and Sand Hill School and headed out kind of toward Page Street and B to ultimately get us to the lower Yahara River Trail, which goes all the way to Madison. Once they make that last connection to Stoughton. So that's the purpose of the meeting. Elder Caravello is on the Park and Rec Committee. He has a great interest in the trail. So we want to meet to understand where we think there's an opportunity for all of us. And that would be another place you could, voice your concern about having some sort of a buffer area or whatever, and maybe the trail will help with that. Oftentimes what we do is we plant, native grasses or trees or whatever to help with that as well. So there's gonna be some different options, as we get closer to that. But right now, it's pretty early, but yeah, it's good to know that you guys want to be part of the conversation.
Absolutely.
So thanks for being here.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Yep. And I did have a question about the multifamily lots, because one of the things we did talk about internally was, we noticed there's 2 lots there. We didn't really know if there was a need or a reason or what the thought process was. We don't really have a problem with it. We were just curious.
I think part of the concern with that, which this is, I don't know who you guys have developing, but essentially, with that property line comes easements through, and so it'll be harder to build over it. You gotta meet those setback requirements, all of that stuff. So we weren't sure why, because we had heard it wasn't, you guys were gonna do one big lot and then it was two, but I mean, it's ultimately your decision on that if you wanted to break it up. So.
Yeah, I mean, it was initially just like the whole lot, 11, which is all commercial, is we know that's gonna be subdivided based on users' needs. And that was always intended on the east side. We didn't know it was supposed to be one developer for that entire 20 acres. But that's kind of where we've gone in conversations, that it seems that northern lot needed to be that big. We made sure, and we did reduce a cul-de-sac and took it out of the plan to get that lower 157 lot to be manageable for development.
Okay.
So, no big deal. We were just
Curious.
everybody just wanted to know.
Yep.
We didn't want you to inadvertently, put yourself in a place you didn't want to be, but it sounds like you have a method to your madness, so we're good with it.
Very good.
I hope.
So that's all you had then? All right. So where do you want us to go with this thing?
So we'll go ahead and we need to technically close the public hearing, don't we? We've been following the
Sure,
rules real
yeah.
quick. So go ahead and
There's
close.
nobody online that wanted to speak, is there? I
Oh,
can't
that's a
see
good idea.
them.
Hang on. Is there anybody online that would like to speak? Can you guys click the raise hand and I can click over to you if you'd like? I'm not seeing anything. Are you guys?
So,
I just have one comment as I'm looking at all this stuff and the maps and trying to find reference points to where all these streets are that are feeding into this. It would potentially be helpful to have a clearer pullback shot of how everything is, something that's has the streets identified a little bit better that are feeding into this, like Oak Ridge Way. That's kind of hard to get your bearing with the information that we have that's in the packet about how everything is impacted.
Okay.
yeah, and what we did
That might be
internally
helpful.
is we kind of looked on Access Dane and kind of went like back and forth but we never really created an overlay or anything like that, which maybe we can piece something together.
I'll try harder to do better on that.
That would be very possible.
I will. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Some of these would have been hard, I think, to see because it's like such a big, but I think that's very reasonable.
A lot of people are not going to be very familiar with that, that Barberry area over there. It's kind of funky.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, what are these? What are we talking about? So a slight,
So one of the things I try to do is when I get and this is just in general, a CSM or land division, I try to take that, make it transparent and then put it under an aerial so we can see it. And I tried to piecemeal this one together because it came in sections and it looked awful. And so I was like, I'm not going to present this to you guys at all. That's part of why it's not in here. So, I mean, I apologize, but not really because it was more confusing. So.
Okay. So that would pretty much do it for the public hearings. So are we looking at taking any action on this or go right to the next item?
I would say you need to take action and you need to recommend to council. So, and I would suggest doing it in two separate requests. So the first one would be for phase 2 preliminary plat, major subdivision, and then the proposed zoning change and contingent on the filing of the final plat.
Okay. So what we have then in front of us is basically the preliminary plat. We do have some recommendations, but ultimately you would make a motion for the plat either as proposed or you could add amendments to it if you so wish. if you want to start off by just making a motion to approve it, you could do that. We can get a second. We could start the conversation. If you choose to make amendments, we could. If not, we could just vote on it as is. It's probably the easiest way to do it, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, what you could do, any of those options work. Otherwise, I've also seen it done where it's like you make a motion, conditioned upon the planner's recommendations or something like that. But really whatever makes sense for you guys moving forward.
Well, I'd be okay with making the motion to move this along with pending planner recommendations, kind of a better look at, you know, with the situation with all the curb cuts on Road B and the multifamily situation at plot 13. You know, basically, I think everything that's in the planner's recommendations just needs to be sussed out a bit better.
So, because it was like,
Yeah, like, so because it is a
So
preliminary.
based on that, do I actually want to make a motion to move it forward? Or
well, because it is preliminary, so that's the nice thing about this, is that you guys are making recommendations subject to planners recommend.
So in the preliminary plat, is that going to council then?
Yeah. This would go to, I believe it would go to council.
Yes.
So because it's preliminary, it's not like it's set in stone at that point. The final plat would need to be consistent with it. So if there are things that you think still need to be worked out, we could bring it back to the next meeting. You could move it forward to the council with the understanding that some of these issues will be worked out sort of between the preliminary plat and final plat. But again, there's more uncertainty with doing it that route. Or you could try to make a decision tonight about what your thoughts are on those planner report conditions.
So it sounds like there's, what, 3 of them? There's the curb cuts, there's the multifamily, and then there's the cul-de-sac.
those are my main concerns. And as far as that Road B curb cuts, the more I thought about this as we were discussing, if it could become, it looks like there's a potential way that could possibly make it 5 curb cuts. That would.
Oh, Rob,
It can be,
well, he's waving.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I just have one comment that people haven't addressed, and I'm looking at your plot 57, the multifamily.
Yep.
I'm concerned because I live on High Point Circle, and you're going to put in multifamily right behind all of the single detached homes on High Point. You took out a cul-de-sac because you wanted to make room for the multifamily, but now you're introducing multifamily right in a area that is, has single family residences. So I wanted to express that concern.
I will note that their intention, because of the fill needs, is the first at least 200 feet from that property line to the east is going to be 4-to-1 grade change as soon as we can get it down for the development and get that to a flatter site. So we're talking, there's a grade change of roughly at least 30 feet between Greenbrier and your neighborhood. So I will note that, you know, a 2-story building won't even be at your home level. But yes, we did look at how can we make that an actual buildable multifamily lot and did remove the cul-de-sac there.
Okay, well, thank you for listening to my comment.
Thank you. And then, Alder Schumacher, did you have anything? I know you were tuning in, but I didn't know if you had any thoughts.
No, everybody's kind of brought up the same point that I was thinking about.
Okay. And Commissioner Farrell, did you have anything?
I don't see anything here that's a showstopper. I would say we need to move it on, even though, yeah, it's preliminary and it's gonna sort of lock a lot of things in. I think, there's several issues can be resolved without, I would hope, major impacts to any one party.
All right, so,
I'd still like to hear what Phil was
yeah,
talking about.
so where'd you land on your
Sorry about
motion,
that,
Phil? I was stalling for you.
I'm not sure, right? What I was thinking about after looking at this, after the discussion and taking a little closer look at these maps, that road B situation, if it could be made to be a total of 5 curb cuts to get those down, and the access for what is marked as number 9 was just came off of road B, but went through that lot 10, like corner of lot 10. And then the other ones were split between, one curb cut between 1 and 2, one curb cut between 3 and 4. And then the lots, I think this is what Chris was talking about, so
We could have
the access
the two
points
buildings
face each
facing
other.
each other, and then
Yeah.
essentially it's like 4 access points off of one.
Took me a second to kind of visualize what you were talking
Yeah,
about.
but see, and then we don't know the layout. That's the problem. But let me see, what I'll do is so this is one of the things that I would say, we're gonna circle back to this. I would approve this with the understanding this is gonna be reviewed at the final plat, like there needs to be a decision, but I would say, that's what I was thinking too, and I think that could work. But it all depends on the layout, so we just need to make notes on how that's done, so.
And you're not doing that work right away anyway.
No, I think my biggest concern would be if any conversation or recommendation related to Oak Ridge, I think is the biggest thing in front of us, because like I said, things have been built. That is probably the first part that's gonna be sold. And so that'd be the most impactful. If we don't have any direction now, that might be something that we talk with staff, but then we come back here and you guys are not on board with the direction. So I think that of all the conversation is most concerning for us.
Yeah. Do you already have a buyer lined up for 13 then? You know what I mean? When is it slated to move?
13 is the lift station.
Yeah, that one you,
It's,
the lift station.
yeah,
That needs a lift
So
station.
so more, clarifying, it's more about Oak Ridge going through. and-
right, yeah.
So you're not as worried about the zoning on 13.
Well, I'm a little concerned that now we have, I think I can show you a concept I do design. It's plausible to have a building fronting Greenbrier with behind being buffered by grass and some parking, and likely a very easy option for underground, because we're only gonna fill the first 200 feet and it's gonna drop off the wetlands to the west. So it's gonna be very conducive to have most of the parking just be underground. I have a little sketch if you want to see it, but I felt like that direction, since it's facing Greenbrier, is about Greenbrier Street. The other stuff is all internal to residential, single family south of there. I see there is enough break.
Sorry, which one's the Oak Ridge? You're saying?
It's a little ball that just comes from the south and you
Right
can't
above
see the
the,
rest of the
right above
road.
the outside.
It's on
Oh, that
page
one.
5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Page 5.
Good. There you go. Thank you.
I mean, the issue is, we don't have snow events every day, but the issue is when we do, we actually have a separate route just for the cul-de-sacs, because you basically have to scrape it out and haul it away, because there's no place to store the snow. I don't know if there would be any around or even access to store it near the lift station.
we could look at that. If that's a concern, I'm sure we can reroute. They have a bigger blue area there at the end of that cul-de-sac to allow for some storage.
And maybe that's the direction we go then.
That might be the compromise.
Yeah.
So far what I've heard from other developers, a motion that includes the curb cut. Anything else?
Just so I'm clear, are you recommending reduced curb cuts or just just so that we are trying to understand.
I think
To
that
look at a
the
reduced
area on the
number?
north is reduced curb cuts.
Okay.
I didn't really have a problem with the use. It was like, all of a sudden, we're looking at 18 curb cuts in an area that we're,
I'm just asking, just making sure,
Yeah.
can we discuss a reduced number versus an actual number today? If that's what the,
I think we're
I
talking
wasn't
reduced
clear about
number.
I wasn't, just so I'm clear on the recommendation.
We'll be probably talking an actual number in the final plan.
Yes.
Agreed,
Yes.
but
And I
just
think
for
you
today.
guys have gotten enough feedback to know that ideally it would be 5.
yeah, which I think if you could lay it out correctly, actually could be a very nice little setup. And I'm telling you, a developer will like that because you're reducing the amount of concrete, asphalt, and curb cuts they have to put in. So it's actually, it's cost savings, but my concern, I don't like that many curb cuts in that space. It's concerning.
You might as well just not have any of them if you're gonna do that many.
You
I
can
know
buy
you're
it
making
and
fun
just
of me,
keep it
but I don't-
vacant.
No,
City can buy it and reduce that guarantee.
Optimally, there would be none, but I'm also looking at this and trying to think that, sorry, but,
As long as we can explore the reduced, I think that's very reasonable, because we just have to look at the layout and design yet.
I literally had sketched 5 though, and then you said that, and that's what I was thinking too, though. If we
I
really
saw
go
it.
correctly.
also I was thinking possibly trying to minimize the way this would be set up, although you can't control how
Right,
people are gonna enter it, access it, how many cars they're gonna be parked there, ingress, egress, but potentially 5 curb cuts would cut down on people backing out onto Road B.
Yep.
But
I
you
agree.
can't control that.
Yeah.
There's a jillion people living in these places and they've got cars parked all over everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, the good news there is most people won't have a reason to access that center area there unless you live there. Because you're probably gonna go out one of the other 2 roads to get to B.
I think it all just depends on what ends up in that outlot area 3 though, quite frankly. And like, for anybody that has kids that play soccer or baseball or anything, sometimes entering and exiting those areas is a nightmare.
I would assume even we would entertain, the city would ultimately get that parkland is, what about just restricting how it gets access to the park? To me, I think it's an obvious connection right from, for calling Country Club for now, or Road A. That really just doesn't make a reason to go to the east. Is there another connection that would be happening on Greenbrier across from where 58 is? That really would reduce the amount of traffic that would run through there. So if you want to restrict yourself on access to the park, that's another thing to think about.
Well, we don't know where the parking lot's gonna be yet.
Yeah.
And
Agreed.
there's a lot.
We're in the same path.
There's a lot.
We don't know what the development's gonna look like.
Right.
There's a lot of stormwater. I don't know what's going on over there as far as like, just in general. But I mean, ideally lining it up with that Country Club Road would be where you
Mhm.
want it,
Mhm.
because then it's a 4-way stop.
Right.
But like,
Except,
oh, don't do that to me.
except depending on if you lined it up. I mean, since we've started going down this path of discussion, might as well just stay on this path.
But nobody from Park and Rec is here. Nobody from Park and Rec is, oh,
Yeah,
guys,
hi.
what's it? Oh,
Unfortunately, I opened the door, but I had to be late to the childcare. She'll follow
Well,
up.
since I'm on planning and I'm on Park and Rec, I'm thinking, okay, well, it looks like Road A is gonna be real short. So if we have some sort of an event or something, and a lot of people coming in off of 51 and taking B, and we have a stop sign at Road A, on Road A at Road B, we're potentially talking car stacking.
You're
up.
absolutely right.
And then, we now have a public safety and
Yes.
all sorts of other
It could
problems.
be-
So I'm like,
It could be a nightmare.
just since.
Might be a
Just thought
2 or
I'd bring
3
that
way
up.
stop.
Trying to do planning.
We're gonna put a big roundabout there, so.
Like roundabout.
Okay.
All right, so we not talk.
Don't wanna digress.
Sorry.
So,
Yeah, yeah,
all right.
good.
So I guess is this a motion to approve or is it like come back another time?
I would say, this is what I'm suggesting. I would say motion to approve with the understanding during the preliminary plat number. Hang on, I'm looking for the numbers. Number 8. And the curb cut issue on number 3 need to be ironed out. If you can think of a better way to say ironed
Yeah,
out.
subject to,
Yeah,
future approval by the city on those items.
because those are I'm number 13, the area over 13, the zoning I'm concerned with, right? Sure. But, that stuff came out of the TAC meeting and I want anything that's run by them to be approved by engineering. Like, that's where I'm concerned. So. Bill, do you feel comfortable with that?
Tell me again, I know you had a
Repeat it
number
for me, Rick.
about the distance.
It's a motion to approve with something in regards to the cul-de-sac and the curb cuts.
Number 3 and number 8 to be
So
resolved.
what would the proper wordage? be?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I guess what
Consideration or?
is the intent to include all the other conditions, but
Or we are gonna adjust number 5.
Yeah, so I
Okay.
would, yeah,
okay, so approval subject to, the city and developer coming to some sort of resolution regarding the curb cuts and the layout of the lot 13 / cul-de-sac.
Yeah,
Whatever that
so
condition was.
it was number 8. So I would recommend with city planner's recommendation, subject to number 3 and number 8 to be followed along, like what Rick just said.
So yeah, subject to the city and developer coming to a major resolution.
I would request a mutual resolution versus a specific of layout, if we can resolve some of the other concerns that
Do we
came.
need a date?
Um,
Yeah, do we want to?
Not helpful.
This means.
You're gonna need it before the preliminary class.
I'm sorry, I will try to get it better, okay? I'm sorry.
That's why I have no comments right now.
Okay.
because I'm,
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, if you guys are ready to start work, we need to get this stuff resolved ASAP.
If they are starting.
Yeah, well,
So,
they
I
should
agree.
really be working before it's approved.
well, it's whatever in phase 1 is approved. The actual plan is approved. We did receive final approval on that to move forward. This is just actually the zoning and plating. So we're not moving forward with anything that hasn't already been approved. Just so that, this is a separate discussion on that, but yeah, we will circle that.
So do we have a motion?
Sure. Make the motion.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All right, does everybody understand the motion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? All right, that motion carries. So the next item is,
Danielle, if you
The
want.
zoning?
You can.
yeah, the zoning.
Yes.
What do we have to do with that? That's,
Hang on, we need to approve the zoning. Oh, no, this is for this, right? Rick. Okay.
chapter 6.
Oh, I thought we had to do the zoning change for these.
Yeah, I think we should do them separately. Go ahead. So. Hang on one second, Danielle. So did we want to, we're gonna do the zoning recommendations separately. Are you guys okay with that? Okay,
Anything we need to cover for the zoning?
I think everything is in place with the exception of that lot 13. It just feels odd to me.
So we will need like a formal ordinance for the zoning change.
There is a draft in the.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. I just want to make sure I wasn't sure if that was in there.
Anybody want to make a motion on the ordinance?
you guys want to table the zoning until we get a preliminary, like the preliminary stuff approved? What do you want to do here? Like, the
Which
only
item?
thing
It's item number 7.
I listed them the same, but I don't have a problem with any of the other zoning and the MR, you know. It's, I mean, if you guys are okay with it, ultimately, you're the plan commission, and then I will be fine with it too. So.
Anybody have any questions on the zoning? It's pretty much,
Well, I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to for the zoning as marked.
all right, is there a second?
I'll second.
I'll second.
Who was that? I can't see, sorry.
Sure.
If that was Farrell. Is that,
Yep.
was that you? Okay.
Yes.
All right, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 And any opposed? Okay. The zoning's approved. Future agenda items?
Oh,
Oh, no,
no,
we've
it's not
got
mine.
other stuff. Now you can leave, Danielle. Sorry
Oh,
about that.
land division.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So I have, on the line right now is, hang on one second, I'm gonna get there. So I've got Tim on the phone to explain these.
Yes.
Tim, are you still there? Oh, hang on, this is the. Okay,
I am.
okay. All right, Tim.
All right, very quickly, there are two specific changes to the subdivision ordinance that are being proposed this evening. One has to do with a requirement for public hearings associated with preliminary plats, such as we had this evening. So there is no statutory requirement to have a public hearing associated with a preliminary plat. However, and I don't know if the mayor or Rick may have provide some institutional knowledge as to why there is, but this is the reason being this would streamline the process and is any potential conflicts regarding noticing requirements, especially for a meeting that's not, let me rephrase that, a hearing that's not statutorily required. These are, of course, are all public meetings, but so to simply simplify the process, the first proposal is an ordinance that would strike the requirement for a public hearing associated with a preliminary plat. Obviously, public meetings would still take place, just to clarify. The second change relates to certain CSMs being approvable by the planning director under certain conditions. And there are certain situations outlined in statute when the commission must take action, must be involved, and those I think are in jumping here, Rick, generally involving or when a CSM involves dedication of land or granting of easements and things like that. Those the plan commission are required to take action on. But for others that are simply, and I think the way we have it drafted is 4 lots or less, straight CSMs, including lot combinations, these could be done just by the planning director. And again, this is more about an efficiency proposal, such that, again, the notice requirements and so forth, under this proposal, a development could take place much more quickly. A developer or a particular property owner could get this approved in a much shorter time and move forward with their particular development. Obviously, the CSM would still have to meet all the technical requirements as well as zoning as a minimum. Otherwise, if it didn't meet the zoning, the planning director would say no. So that's the Reader's Digest version of what's before you this evening. I just wanted to throw out, I guess, a question. I looked at so there are two ordinances. They're both related to Chapter 66, the subdivision ordinance. But there's the initial sentence under the ordinance of the Common Council refers to CBUs, and I think Chris mentioned this earlier. So that's just a header. I think that's a Scrivener's error that may need to be changed.
Do you want me to go on to the next one, Tim, too?
So they're both, yeah, I think that's it. So the one is the public hearing requirement and the other is the CSM process. The one you have on screen right now is the CSM process again. So yeah, keep scrolling down. It says approval procedure, and this outlines circumstances in which the planning director could approve certified survey maps.
So one of the things that I like to use an example is a lot line adjustment. So when they're shifting a lot line for whatever reason, it has to meet minimum zoning requirements, but that technically has to go through all of the steps. And then the other thing is a lot combination. So if you buy two lots and want to combine them, technically it has to go through all of the steps, which I think is excessive. That's something I can look at and go, it meets minimum zoning requirements. So like, for example, Rick and I were just looking at this building and technically there are 5 lot lines going through it. So we, in theory, should have a lot combination done. So we've got an existing building that's doing a lot combination. And technically that would have to go through all of the notices and then essentially 3 meetings. So that's the kind of stuff that we're looking at and going, why is this going through all of this? So.
And
Chris,
I guess ultimately,
Tim?
oh no, I was going to say, sorry for interrupting. So this is not unique to Stoughton. There are other communities in Dane County and elsewhere that allow for this process.
the only other comment I was gonna add, like, this is purely a policy question about, do you guys like having the public hearings? Like, do you think it's a good thing to provide the extra notice, have the public hearings, like, strictly a policy call, so, go ahead, Alderman ISP.
I find the argument for removing public hearings pretty hollow. You know, you're calling it for efficiency. And we've said in meetings here where we've had a public hearing go like this. I open the public hearing. Is there anybody here for the public hearing? No, I close the public hearing. So explain to me how giving the community and constituents and citizens another opportunity to discuss in a meaningful way, removing that, how that makes things more efficient.
So I think what I heard is there's certain circumstances which Chris talked about where it's.
I'm not saying the stuff that Chris is.
Because we'd have to do a 30-day, sometimes public hearing notice or 2 weeks or whatever it is, put it in the paper, and then we would have
You're
to.
saying the two are connected because Chris can't do that because of the public meeting.
Yeah, we have to notice it, then we have to have the meeting here, get approval here, and then take it to council instead of her just approving it administratively. It wouldn't affect like anything we talked about tonight, right?
Oh, those are two separate things, I think. So like, there's the preliminary plat, which is the hearing, the administrative, like the CSM minor subdivision, those don't have a public hearing at this point.
Right.
But we're looking at just approving those through staff.
Correct.
And that's what I want to see. It's not, there's no zoning changes. A lot of them are.
I'm not arguing with that.
Yeah.
It's
It's the removal of the
meantime,
public hearing thing that bothers me.
Okay.
it's that and staff time. Because we have to send out notices and
I
300 people.
can just see though, you know, I understand that and I support that. But I also see where it could, when none of us are here in the future, that it could be abused. You know, it's like, what, at what line do you draw that? And if somebody wants to ram something through,
I think the line is drawn right in.
I'm cynical.
Right. Go ahead, George.
There's parts of this, I agree with Tom. I think when my recollection of our talks on this was that we were gonna get rid of it for certain small lots or basic ones like combinations, like I own this lot and I bought this lot and I want to combine them. I didn't think we'd be fully striking public hearings on that. And I have to agree with Tom that that seems, I thought we were going to add a little bit more to be more specific on which lots we would want to try and trim and make this easier on instead of just an overall, like all of them in the future,
Right.
no public hearings on it.
I'm fine, like, personally, I have no problem necessarily with public hearings for preliminary plats, especially large subdivision plats. And I would say under like the minor land divisions under a certain amount, one of the things that will trigger a public hearing though is if they change, if they're changing the lot size, a lot of times that'll change the zoning. That's just normally what happens. And so it will trigger a public hearing on that front. I understand your concern though. But I would say what I would concentrate on is the staff approval for lot combinations and lot line adjustments. I can't approve something if it doesn't meet minimum setback requirements. And if we're talking a lot line adjustment, so somebody can have a garage or whatnot, these meetings, they have to pay every time they come. And that's in addition to a surveyor and all of that stuff. And 9 times out of 10 that people are asking for lot line adjustments, it's like us in this room, you know? So, lot line adjustments and lot combinations, I don't know that that needs to go to the elevation of here, right? Because it's already normally like not, again, like this building, 5 lot lines through it. An existing building shouldn't happen anyway. I don't want to get into that, but that's the kind of stuff.
I think that's what we're in agreement on, is to try and make certain parts of that more efficient. It just feels like by crossing out all public notices that.
We're throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Okay,
Hold it, if I may, Chris, you mind if I jump in on this?
sure.
So the proposal relates regarding public hearings solely to preliminary plat. So that requirement would go away solely for preliminary plats. Number one, there is, as I mentioned, there is no statutory requirement to have those public hearings for preliminary plats. But the other is there's nothing prohibiting a plan commission chair or committee chair from opening up a public meeting for public discussion. It just eliminates the requirement for that hearing notice, which a case in point I'll put out for this evening. For example, the public hearing notice for tonight's meeting included a different address because some changes were made after the public hearing notice went out. So now we have to post something on the city's website after that hearing notice has been published in the paper. So that's a more of a technical reason. But I think based on my experience, when you invite the public via a public hearing, you're saying, hey, we want your input and we want your, what your thoughts and feelings are about this. In the case of preliminary plats, they're generally technical in nature. They're going to meet the zoning requirements or they're not going to meet, aren't going to meet lot requirements, road widths, all the things you talked about this evening. But for example, if it's at a public hearing, someone said, I don't like this plat and you should deny it. And then you move forward and you approve it. Then you're going to say, oh, you're not listening to me. You invited me in here via a public hearing to give my opinion and you're not listening to me. Well, a preliminary plat, much like a CSM or plat, is much more technical in nature. And Rick, if you want to dive in here, feel free. But giving the public the sense that, for example, they could say, no, let's shoot this down just because we don't like it at a public hearing. I think you may give the public, when you're specifically inviting them via a public hearing notice, you're giving them a sense to have more control.
And there's a problem with that?
No, when in this case, it is not a requirement of statute. I'm
It's not what I
saying,
asked. It's not the question I asked you. I don't care if there's if it's required or not. I asked you, is there a problem with giving the public more?
no,
Is that-
no. There isn't. So if that is that the direction the commission wants to go, I have no problem with that. It's again more, here is an instance that could eliminate some errors and the need to publish things or not publish things, et cetera, which may cause confusion or conflict with publication requirements.
I think what happens is you're giving somebody false hope. They think they can come here and say, you know what, I don't want that in my backyard. I'm gonna go there and tell them, and then they're not gonna put it in my backyard, when that's really not realistic.
You know, that's up to them to decide, but they should have that right to be able to come up here and make those statements.
And that's fine.
And, you know, and the statement that he was making before about, you know, basically he described what we three sitting here have to deal with. It's called being older people and listening to people and having them be upset and not always getting the right answer. And yeah, we do that. So, you know, if we get rid of the public hearing, we're still going to get that. That's not going to change anything. You know, like I said, you know, we're throwing the baby out with the bathwater on this one.
And that's fine. We're going above and beyond what's required by the state.
I understand
If that's what you want to continue to do, we can certainly do that. What we're trying to do.
I'd like to
is
find a way to
create
streamline things too. But
So what I would suggest then is that the first one that was done, is
Yeah,
the
we don't need,
noticing, and we want to keep the noticing in there from what you're telling me, Tom, which is fine.
so the preliminary plat ordinance just affects the notice for the major subdivision. So if it's 5 or more lots, then the notice would go out. So even under your current ordinances, if it's 4 or less lots, there's no public hearing notice or anything like that. So these ordinances aren't dependent on each other. So if you only want to do one, it would just be the CSM approval.
so
That would be,
so you're telling me is that anything above 4 lots has to have a public notice and a public hearing, and a
Yeah.
public hearing.
correct.
So
It's considered-
the things that you're talking about are usually less than 4 lots.
Usually 2.
Yeah,
So then why are we even having this discussion?
because right now I'm technically supposed to bring it to you guys, which is kind of weird. Like, I mean, it's fine. I mean, if there are changes in, so like, if it's a change in, like, let's say they're creating a really large lot and then they're gonna ask for a rezone so they can do something, normally that's the rezone's triggered. Like, or they're subdividing lots, like 2 lots, or, and that's not even a good example, but most of the time that there's changes in the lot, like with the exception of lot line adjustments, and I always call them smushed together. Sorry, that's what I call them because that's what I think of. Unless there's a trigger by a zoning change, a lot of times those are just citizens doing it. Like, and I mean, not developers. That's what I was getting at. Go ahead.
So Tim mentioned that there are other communities that, is Stoughton, are we unique in the way we have our ordinance? And everybody around us or other communities in Dane County already don't have?
I would say Stoughton's probably unique in having public hearings for the 5 or more lots divisions. Again, not a requirement, but there's nothing wrong with having more notice or more public input in the process, right? Like that's just a policy decision. So
If I may, commissioners and Rick, the community I worked for most recently on a key does have that requirement, and they are considering removing it. Same discussion we're having here. And again, I would just hopefully people will leave not with the feeling that I'm forcing people to not have openness and transparency. That's not the case at all. This is again, as I said, the committee or commission chair, he or she may engage with the public it's a public meeting, but there's not their request for that public hearing notice. But again, if that's the way you go, that's okay, because it's been that way. It's just, again, something that is not required by statute and can create some issues regarding process and notification if that notification process is not followed.
So if the intent is just to streamline the CSM process, or that 4 or less, you would just move the CSM ordinance forward. The preliminary plat ordinance, that's only on the public hearing and public notice. So if there's no desire to change that, you don't have to approve that or do anything with that. These are independent ordinances. So doing the CSM one would allow Chris to approve those minor like lot divisions on those 4 or less lots. There's no other like process changes. But again, anything that requires dedication or improvements would still come back here.
That's what I'm suggesting. It doesn't sound like you guys want to remove that requirement. That's fine. But I would ask that we talk about the secondary, which is up on the screen right now.
So before we get to the secondary, I guess, you know, because with this, then we're talking about that a lot of these still get kicked up to us where we'd have the public notice because of the rezoning on there. Can we see that ordinance just to understand that a little bit better when we're looking at this? Is that readily available?
Yeah, so like there with the rezone, those are by state law required to have public hearings. So that's why that would come back here.
If you want, we can bring it back in the next meeting. We don't have to deal with it tonight. It's been like this forever. So if you want to take a deeper dive in it, we'll get that for you for the next meeting. And if you decide you don't want to change it, that's fine too. I think what I'm hearing though, that this other one
Why don't we do
might be a
this?
little different. You might want to consider this, or we can bring them both back. It doesn't really matter to us. There's no rush here.
Why don't we do this? Why don't we just bring them both back and we can discuss, like, and I don't know if both back is the right way to go. I don't think that there's any desire from what I'm picking up to remove the notices, but I can like I'll do like a chart comparing and contrasting with zoning notices versus, you know what I mean? Like, so you guys can kind of see the process laid out. You want?
I think that would be helpful.
I'll do that. Yeah, we'll get that done. So we'll just, if I could get a motion to table these 2 things so that we can,
Or postpone until the next meeting.
yeah, postpone. Okay.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Second by Tom. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And
It was 1 on that.
Phil,
Oh, thank you.
anybody opposed? All right, that motion carries. Now we're at future agenda item.
We had one thing come in. It is a parking lot expansion for planned development. I think it's all stuff that you guys have seen before. It's through Emmy Roth. So that'll be coming at the next meeting. And then we'll bring back the ordinance with some additional information. Is there anything that you guys want me to be doing? Or want me to look into?
Plenty to do.
I think I've already had my schedule.
Yeah, no, I'll try to get that stuff.
I know,
to you.
I said, I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah, but I mean, I agree, because that's how I like to show it too, and I just like, I could not get it to work on this, so I apologize, and I
No.
should have probably reached out for like an overall map first, and then I could have attached it to an article below, but yeah,
It's definitely gonna help at council, because I think a lot of people be like, I don't even know what I'm looking at.
yeah, I get it. Well, and sometimes I forget because I look at so often.
Yeah.
But I do try to do that, because I always like, I can get my bearings better that way.
Well, and Chris, I'm all for this streamlining, you know, and finding ways to
Oh, sure.
make this process more efficient. I think, you
Same
know,
here.
it's just suddenly it didn't seem like it was, and without some of the other information to go with it to show, or a little more history with that, it's just like, I don't want to
Yeah.
jump on this right away. So I don't want to discourage as we're sitting here, like, oh my gosh, and we need this, and we need to see this, that.
You guys are like, I want to make it abundantly clear, like, nothing, you guys will not offend me. Like, seriously, if we bring stuff and you're like, we don't like it, no, you don't like it.
Then you don't know me well enough. That's okay.
Right. But I just meant like, I just meant like, we're bringing it to you, we talk about it. If you don't like it, it's fine. Like, it's really okay. So don't worry. Not like it's, I don't think anybody here is, it's fine. But just let us know too, like when we have problems or you see improvements, let us know so we can make them. So we don't keep bringing you guys the same stuff over and over. So.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Bill and
Second.
second by Jordan. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
It'd be funny if we-
All right, we'll adjourn. Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Thank you. 1 hour meeting.